Lindi, thank you for being here. Tell us a bit about yourself.
So I'm Lindi Smith. I am the head of admissions and administration at LVS Ascot, which is a day and boarding school co-ed in the heart of Berkshire, close to Windsor Castle and the famous Ascot racecourse.
And we're in a bit of a noisy place. We're not in our usual, somebody's just decided to have a nice phone call outside. So we're in Shanghai.
So we're on the road. We're on tour. We're on tour. Podcast on tour. Love that.
So we're a little bit, we're working with what we've got. But we wanted to talk about, we're at an event.
Yeah.
We wanted to talk about maybe sort of these kinds of events because we got talking yesterday and we went down a little off on a tangent. And because you're very, very experienced in admissions. And so we wanted to talk a little bit about the market conditions, boarding schools in the UK, some trends and just that in general. So you said you've been working in admissions for how long?
So I've been in a school environment for over 8 years, but in admissions for about 5.
What were you doing before that?
I've got a weird and wonderful background, but I came from West End stage before, and I can teach dance and drama. And so I kind of ended up at LVS because my daughter was there. But then I did some local authority stuff and business development and coding, different hats, different times of my life, getting the opportunity to actually use those different things. And being a mum, you kind of experience all sides of what happens in schools, and that helps. But weirdly, I did business studies and accountancy at A level. I went to a British private school in South Africa. I'm from South Africa originally, and could do that. So stats and patterns, I can spot patterns. That might be, as my husband calls it, my neuro spiciness. And I love, as talking to you today, talking to people and seeing what they're experiencing and how that goes together. And a lot of it is listening. A lot of it is listening to what people are saying. The difficulty when you look at independent sector right now is it's very easy, and specifically in the UK, for everything to be blamed on VAT. But it's there. It's there now. There's nothing we can do about it. It's not going to go away. We fought the good fight, as a lot of very passionate leaders did, but it's there.
I mean, we're at an event where there's lots of boarding schools, higher ed institutions, lots of people in Shanghai trying to attract Chinese students. The general narrative has been, we've seen a dip, and maybe VAT is one of the reasons. But I wanted to talk with you about, it's not as simple as.
It's not as simple. Absolutely. And I think independent schooling in the UK and in the US is a global thing. It's a diverse thing. Looking at China in particular will always be a massive market, but this is a global downturn. And for those of us who travel everywhere, you and I have met each other before in Hong Kong. We've had many other colleagues who I see every couple of hours at an airport or anybody else. And so I've been in Istanbul recently. I've been in Mexico, Nigeria. It's a downturn everywhere. So we're the largest number of our students are day students.
And you always want to keep it that way.
Yeah, it's been like that for a long, long time. I mean, we've been there since the 1800s. And the school was originally started as school providing the same opportunities for students whose parents worked in the licensed trade. So pubs and breweries and restaurants and things like that. So it's got that history. And so I think it will always primarily remain a day school, but that doesn't mean you don't get internationals as day students as well. And where there is the downturn, and there's a lot to be said about the pandemic, we mustn't forget that kind of will always leave a bit of a trail, and people are still coming out of that. We had a lot of international traveling families, especially in the area where we are. 15 minutes from Reading, your large companies, Apple and Amazon, and those are based in Reading. They're now building a new fighter jet in Reading. So you had a lot of expats who brought their children. People flocked back home during the pandemic to be with family. They didn't have a choice, immigration and visas and all of those things. And a lot of them didn't come back as expats. So you're not just looking at your boarding community having a downturn. Your actual traveling day students have also seen a downturn.
So I suppose, but even in a school which is more full boarding, they'd still want to maintain the majority of their students to be British. I feel that that's always the ideal.
Yeah, one of the lines, we all have our little speech when we're at events like this because you network and you're essentially selling your school and promoting your school. One of the lines I always use is, we are not an international school. We are primarily a British boarding school. And for a key number of nationalities, that's important. I always get asked if we cap nationalities as well. We've never had to, which I think we are quite lucky because other places do, but we've never had to. Numbers for us is just enough so people feel comfortable, but not that many that they end up flocking. It's human nature. I mean, I will spot a South African on the other side of Tesco, and still do. 20 years in the UK, and I still go, and students will do that. Children will do that. It's about how you handle them in the institution and making sure that global alliance is there and that diversity is there, mixing them in the rooms, providing, life learning classes and cultural festivals. And we've got a large Nepalese group in our school as well.
Couple of families, and they all tell their friends.
So word of mouth, specifically certain cultures as well. They'll go by word of mouth. You can have agents and you can have people, everything else. It just takes one to pass that message on. And they force as families as well. So we've got a Nepalese. And I know there was a festival this week, and it was lovely. They had, our head boarder is Nepalese, and they had the students in the drama studio. They were teaching them traditional dances, and they were cooking traditional meals. I think it'll be a very sad day if we lose that in UK schools, lose having that international market, having those students.
Has that been a thing? Because, I mean, I'm not from a boarding family. I'm the first, my children are the first generation to do boarding school, but I get the sense that, I mean, it's got this reputation or the idea of being very British, properly, family go to boarding school. And when did international students really start flocking to international schools?
Independent schools. I think similar to when we talked about how businesses started moving across the world and people bringing their children with them and wanting that stability, I think more than anything else. If you've got to travel, my dad traveled for work quite a bit. Now, South Africa is not known for boarding schools. They have a few, but that's not, everybody went to the local state down the road and that's where you did your thing. My father traveled a lot for work, and my mum will tell you, she's moved 26, 27 times in her life. You want that stability for your students. And I think a lot of that came from families traveling and saying, actually, we want to have continuity of education. We want to keep them in one place. And there is still something to be said about the British curriculum. It's still very much seen as elite and the best in the world. And so people will continue to come back for that experience.
Let's take a quick break to talk about something that can make all the difference for your child's educational journey. I'm thrilled to share that this episode is sponsored by Top Schools, your trusted partner in navigating the complex world of school applications. If you're aiming for a top independent school in the UK, Top Schools offers personalised consulting to ensure your child finds the very best fit with a guaranteed outcome. From identifying those best fit schools to crafting standout applications to invigilating the entrance exams, the expert team is with you every step of the way. Ready to take control of your child's future? Visit topschoolsadmissions.com or click the link in the show notes to learn more and book a consultation today. Use the code DESTINATION for 20% off. That code is DESTINATION for 20% off personalised support for entry into a top independent boarding school in the UK. Now, back to our conversation.
I get the point. There's some forces, families, and there's some people who do a lot of traveling. But I get the sense that certainly with the families that I work with, they just prefer to send their children to a UK boarding school for all of the opportunities, the curriculum, and all of the rest of that. Does it vary when you're visiting different markets, like the reasons why families would choose to send their children to boarding school, or do you find that there's much more commonality that?
I've noticed much more commonality in recent years than I did before. I think previously for a lot of nationalities and cultures, it would have been around, it's what we do. It's tradition. Second, third, fourth generation went, and therefore the places, particularly like Asia, will have, that's what happens. We get to our GCSE years and we send our students abroad, and that's what they go and do. Some places that don't have particularly, or at the time, didn't have particularly good secondary education. You look at places like Dubai and places like that, they didn't. I mean, their primary education was outstanding. It just wasn't there for secondary. That's turned on its head, really. So that's kind of changed. I think there is also a lot more focus, again, coming out of the pandemic on value added and on the extras that a boarding school environment in the UK brings, not just the education, the co-curricular, the sport, the performing arts. We're around Square School as well, those global travel opportunities that you don't necessarily get in your home country.
You do. I live and work in Hong Kong. I've been there for 30 years. I also live and work in the UK. Um, and I feel like we have some beautiful schools, especially north of the border, like in the southern Greater Bay Area, southern part of China or the Middle East. These schools, they look amazing, but they'll never have they'll never be able to deliver the true essence of what a British independent education is, to create the diversities. It feels like we do work with a number of these schools, and it feels like the next best thing. Admittedly, if you don't want to send your child all the way to the UK,
or you can't,
it's a very good
alternative. Yeah, absolutely.
Still not the real thing.
And this is the thing. And I think that there's a fear amongst some independent schools in the UK, particularly there are others opening overseas. And it's keeping that positivity and going. But actually, they will never fully 110% deliver what you can get.
Let's also not forget the reasons why a lot of these British schools are opening in Asia and the Middle East are for the reasons that we took the downturn.
Yes.
Right. So
yes.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Can't bring the horse over the water, so we're just going to go over there. I think it's also making sure that we can cater for the people who can't because of economic downturn, because of those countries struggling. Essentially, whether we like it or not, independent sector is also a business, and people have got to look at, you've got to weigh that up. At the center and at the heart of all of this, and I think I speak for many colleagues who will feel exactly the same, is a child and their educational journey, and it needs to remain that. We can't lose that essence. But I think you have to look at how do we cater further? How do we cater for more? It was very interesting in one of the seminars. They spoke about the amount of Chinese students now going to Malaysia, which is not, usually you listen to some of these seminars and you go to a lot of these events. I go to a lot of them. And you hear similar trends and similar things about the market. That's one I hadn't clocked. Yeah. I didn't, when you kind of hear it on the periphery and you think Malaysia, and I've seen it, and I was in Bangkok and Thailand and Singapore and all of those places last year, 8 months ago. I just didn't put two and two together. There was a moment.
What did they say? Why are they choosing to go to Malaysia?
Cost.
Interesting.
Cost and distance.
Yeah. It's
distance.
The distance thing is more important than cost. If you ask me, having worked with Chinese families for 30 years, I feel like COVID, we talk about a lot of parents, never mind their culture, the snowflake generation and all of that, mollycoddling them for want of a better word. But I think that Chinese parents, a lot of them feel, especially after COVID, that maybe sending them to UK is just a step too far. And if something happens, they're a long way away. Whereas if they're in Malaysia, it's a couple of hours.
But you couple that with the cost of flights and things like that. We look at, I've got friends who live in the States, in the US. South African lived in the UK, went to the US. And we quickly caught up with them when they were visiting family. And she was talking about how her daughter has this one big holiday, the summer holidays in the US. That is it. And I kind of drove back from seeing them in Dorset. And I said to my husband, you know what, I can understand why and why we've always done it. And from a well-being and a pastoral point of view and everything else. But the UK it's a half term, 6 weeks, and there's 2 half terms, 6 weeks, and there's 2. And the difficulty for those families, that was a lot of conversations with agents yesterday, was what do you do? What do you do for those half terms? You put another thing on top of that,
I underestimated, as I'm a British expat, although I hate that word, that's why I just used it, as a Brit living in Hong Kong for 30 years and then deciding to I sent my children to the UK for boarding during COVID because Hong Kong schools really did a number on our kids.
Yeah.
So effectively they closed. They would argue with me that they were just delivering learning in a different mode, but I'll say that they closed.
No, you were delivering the learning as a parent, attempting.
And they were like sort of 12, 13, and I could see it just wasn't working. So I just bailed and I sent them both to the UK for boarding. And that was a good decision. Absolutely no regrets. They absolutely loved it and I loved it. But I did underestimate how much flying I would do and how much babysitting I would need to do. And if you do choose to get a guardian, then it's expensive.
Yes.
I mean, you and I were talking yesterday about the on costs. So it's clear to you, maybe less clear to me, but that the cost is clearly a concern and one of the key reasons for the downturn. And so we look at the fees and obviously they've gone up.
Yep.
And I guess what's the range now between about 35,000 and 65,000?
I would say that's quite accurate, depending on where the schools are. and what they deliver. And that's what we get asked more now than ever. I have even seen in less than 18 months, you know, the kind of questions that are going to come when you have that 20-minute slot to speak to an educational consultant or an agent. And usually it's, what are your fees? And I was actually speaking to our marketing team yesterday, and I said, we need to revamp the fees sheet. We need to look at putting the fees and then going, and you need to consider, because we get asked that, you need to consider the guardianship, you need to consider the NHS surcharge, you need to consider the visa. I think the last I looked, it was about £765 a year per child. In isolation, you look at all of that in isolation, fine, a CAS is £55 for the school and NHS is £765 and the visa. You put that all together, you're very quickly looking at anything between £8,000 and £10,000 extra.
Never mind the flight, so expensive, because you look at the plans, and for a lot of overseas families, they're charging around £2,500 to £3,500 a year, but that doesn't include the actual nights. They need to stay with the host family. That's coming in at around £62 to £65 every night. That doesn't include the mileage. I mean, every time they're sending your child, picking them up and bringing them back, that's 45 pence a mile, plus their time. I think everything is charged. Would probably budget about £10,000. Might be a bit over, but better to be over than under.
And, you know, the rules are changing again. I got an email yesterday from our immigration partner to say, again, more rules changing on the 11th of November around guardianship. You know, now we've got, you now have the letter of undertaking that's got to be signed. You've got to name the guardian and the agent on the CAS. I don't disagree with any of the procedures they're taking. Absolutely not. It's about the safeguarding. And one thing the UK is phenomenal at is having those processes around safeguarding and keeping children safe in education. So I don't question it, but the administration, and I was having breakfast with another admissions manager from another school this morning, and we really are in a process where we're having to support each other and peer on peer kind of chatting and going, well, how do we do this? And she came over, bless her, in an absolute panic, because it's those rules changing overnight. And she's going, it's half term and we've got this student coming, but we haven't had the share code yet, and we haven't had and what would you do? And because we're all learning on a daily basis. Yeah, we do. And then we, funnily enough, both over breakfast this morning figured out we have exactly the same one. And I was like, well, do you have him on WhatsApp? Girl. Yes, it is. I was like, do you? And then we're both going, oh my God, it's 2 a.m. in the morning. We can't exactly message him. He's the type of guy that will message back at 2 a.m. in the morning, which is great. But it's also the on cost to the families. But for admissions teams, the training, the extra steps we've got to learn about and take, you're really holding someone's entire life in your hands. And that might sound extremely melodramatic now, but it's absolutely is. Yeah. Huge responsibility.
Years ago, the CAS, they were so late. I mean, they were late. It wasn't the school's fault. The dad was literally lining up at the office to get the biometric tests for the CAS, like at 7 a.m. every morning to see if we were days away from term starting, and they couldn't book the flight. So, well, it's nice that you all, you need to support one another as an industry. And I was talking to another school yesterday where they feel like their location is a slight disadvantage. They're not super close to London because
everything is consideration now. Everything. The parents will go down to literally the nitty-gritty, exactly that.
There are so many schools to choose from.
Yeah. So, I mean, our location that's one of our selling points. Yeah. It's one of our selling points. And you kind of lead with that. And they go, and then you lead with it's safe. Big thing. Again, spoke here in a lot of seminars about the parents looking for safety. Understandable. We don't do exit weekends. Huge selling point.
Did you used to?
No, we did one. We did the Maybank holiday. That was the only one. So this isn't a huge shift for us, which is great because our boarding staff, we're used to that anyway. And as a result, we don't even have weekly boarding as a option.
So we've talked about the costs, the fees. Actually, what I was going to say was, you revamping your fees sheet. It would be interesting. What we sometimes do is a budgeting guide for the family. It doesn't matter. The fees are the fees. I mean, it's how much does a family need to set aside?
Absolutely.
Flow purposes and all of that.
What do they need to consider?
So we even can project. I mean, I don't ask them about maths either, but normally the family, they're much more
savvy on that.
Spreadsheets with formula that I have no, but it's worth projecting, because we also have quite a number of British expats that might go for boarding, and then whether or not they get home fees for university at the end of it is going to make a big difference to whether or not they spend the money to do the boarding.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so the budget, I think maybe we need to move towards a budgeting guide rather than a fees sheet.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea, actually. My mind's kind of worrying now. There we go. Every day is a school day, Ruth. Every day is a school day. But it is, yeah, you're absolutely right. That is that extra assistance as well for families. The easier you make it as well. People don't have, I think we've also not even us as a nation, I just think as humans, we've stopped, all of us, having the patience to research. We just don't, do we? Everything, it's quick, it's online, so people want it, the easier we make it for our clients, our students, probably will make that a better experience.
The cost issue is, I feel like the narrative from last year when VAT was announced and then it was introduced in January, that a lot of agents, consultants, representatives, parents, and everyone was just talking about, oh my gosh, it's so much more expensive than it ever was. But should we not shift the conversation more over to the value? Because I still strongly believe in independent education in the UK.
Yeah.
And you can go to Malaysia or Middle East and get something somewhat similar to British, but it's not really, is it? So let's start talking more about the value of a Britain. And you save a lot of money too. Let's not forget.
Yeah.
If you think about a family that have got their child either in an international school abroad or a smaller private school, they're paying for tutors. They're paying for all of their sports and extracurricular activities.
And this is included.
Might be for textbooks and some schools in play. So it's worth also in the budgeting guide. So parents need to try to compare.
Absolutely. You've got to look at those little bits as well. So my daughter's now in year 11. And bearing in mind, I work at the school she's at. I never, even in my role as head of admissions, mentioned that exam fees are included in our fees. I didn't even think of it until
a lot of schools shut them on top.
Until she was we're in GCSE world. God help us for the next how many months, but we're in GCSE mode. Until I speak to friends whose children are on the same age, and just having a coffee and someone going, oh my God, I didn't realize it was £600, £700 for exams. And I'm going, do you know what? Didn't even think of that. I now put that in my conversations. No one's going to ask again. We just need to pass English and math. No, but I think we don't consider that. I now put that into my conversation because that's another £600-700 you didn't think of.
We get into IB exam fees. Woof.
Yeah, my brother wrote IB. We wrote completely different things. And this is it. I've seen it from all sides. My parents left for Holland and he was still in school. So he went to the International School of The Hague and then Erasmus University. And yes, there was all of those extra costs that came in. So even down to we will include the exam fees, those conversations need to be had, those narratives. But you are absolutely right. Parents are getting more savvy. So the questions are being asked. What sports do you provide? How much of those sports can they do on site? And even the shock on faces when you go, all of it. How much will the co-curricular club cost? Nothing, because it's delivered by our in-house staff. As much as independent school teachers get lengthy holidays, they work insanely hard. Because it is that all-round, that holistic balance. And where it is makes it superior, makes it value added. If we're talking about that, is I said to my daughter one day, why do you love the school so much? What is it? Because we didn't do independent sector when she was in juniors, and we lived in central London, and we had a really nice Ofsted outstanding school across the road, and that's just what you did. And she said, Mummy, the school gives me the time to work on my talents, and therefore I'll respect my academics. And I was like, I'm pinching that and using it as a line. Hashtag that one for you. But she was absolutely right. And so a lot of these students, especially some of our international students, walk into that environment not knowing if they can play hockey or sing, or are they really good artists or overget. So those extra options opens up a world that they never knew about. And as much as the world will always need your doctors and your lawyers and your vets and all of your accountants and everything else, the world does not function without your artists, your performers, your hospitality staff, we're sitting here. I mean, someone needs to bring you coffee. Someone needs to make breakfast for everybody. We need to look back at those vocationals, the jobs that come with that. And I feel international parents are clocking onto that as well. And they're asking the right questions. They're asking the questions around, if I 2 years ago said the words BTEC internationally, I still got, it's like saying Voldemort and everyone has a bit of a, yeah, my daughter's now going to do a level 3 BTEC because it's who she is. It's who she is and what she does. The amount of times I mentioned BTEC yesterday and I saw lighting up eyes. Oh, show me. Or which ones have you got? Everything else. They understanding that. They understanding the vocational. They're understanding that AI is developing massively, but it's not going to be able to do all of those jobs. It's just not. You are still going to need your electricians and your plumbers and the people to make the world pretty. They're clocking onto that, and that you can get. It comes as a package with that British boarding school experience.
Go back to academics in a moment. I just wanted to pick up on something. We were talking about like the value and the, what your child gets when they are in an independent school, particularly boarding. If you think about all of under the general umbrella of, I don't like the term, but mental health, and we look at all of those issues that children are seeing, they go to psychologists or counsellors and they're needing some sort of support, which is external to the family. They also get all of that when they're in a school.
They do. It's that pastoral support, that well-being. That should no longer be a unique selling point. That should not be a USP. That should be a fundamental, and it isn't yet. And I think we need to make a conversation of that. Yes, in a lot of places it will be. You will hear people always when they do the whole, we're in a big site, we have an indoor swimming pool, we have an outstanding pastoral and well-being, but actually delivering that and saying that's what's there. We've got a really good well-being structure and kind of set up as we have our safeguarding well-being, we have an in-house counsellor that sits in our well-being hub with our sensory garden. And, even I must say as a staff member, I want to pop down to Mirella, our amazing counsellor, and just, sometimes it's a cup of tea and a chocolate biscuit. That's all it is. That's just a moment. And she's very good. She's trained, obviously, but she's very good at spotting quickly whether a student is there for the third time that week to miss biology or whether they're actually there because there's an underlying issue. And then you go, because that's a huge role when you work because it's cultural differences as well, right? And what happens
away from home. But I think it's really worth mentioning because you have teenage children.
Yep.
There will be issues.
Oh, yes.
Almost a given.
Oh, yes.
You can handle them in the home as parents, but often this really
takes a village. It takes a village, Ruth, and you're sending them away from home. And when we talk about being a home from home experience, the late morning brunches on a Sunday, teenagers need sleep more than anybody else does. There is the thing we need to remember, that they are growing and learning and process. When my daughter hit the year 9 girl dip, and she's a single child, I was doing the whole, what do I do with this? 4 or 5 years in now at the same role.
She sounds amazing.
She is lovely. She's adorable. I love her. Something to do. But that's as a result of being at LVS. That's as a result of the opportunities that get provided by the independent schooling system. I mean, 1 minute she's in a plane, on the weekends flying. Then she's in the school musical. Then like I said, she left for New York yesterday on a performing arts trip.
Taking advantage of everything that's on offer.
But giving them the kind of the confidence to be independent thinkers. This is the kind of thing, this is not just about academics. It's bringing that resilience, that risk-taking opportunities, the problem-solving, the independence, where that will happen. Our head of boarding, he's been there 11, 12 years now, and he cracks me up because he takes no prisoners. Best man in the world, but he will stand there when parents drop off and they goes, they will cry. 2 weeks in, they will cry. You will be strong, Mum. You will. Kids are much more resilient than we are. They will get it, but they are going to. It's not normal if they don't, because 2 weeks in, the fun and the novelty of sharing it wears off slightly, and then they will come out the other side of it. We've just got to push through and trust that people that work in these environments are extremely experienced in doing this. They've been doing this for a long time. They've seen the patterns. They know what's coming. But it's having to be creative as well about how we support cultures. So we've got, fun enough, 2 Chinese teachers at school. And in the last academic year, the decision was made that one of them will primarily look after the well-being and the pastoral care for our Chinese students. and understanding those cultural nuances and checking in with them. I saw an email yesterday that came out with a lovely sheet that said a half-termly review, ask how everybody's doing. And it's not to, none of it is to cover ourselves. All of it's to genuinely go, tell us, are we doing it right? Are we providing you with the well-being and pastoral support you need? Anxiety is through the roof with our teenagers. School refusers are through the roof. I go back to the dreaded pandemic. We'll see the results of this for years to come. So we've got to put those extra bits in place. But again, comes with that balanced view of a British boarding school experience.
Idea of selling the school. I don't know if that's a dirty word. A lot of people that work in admissions, they don't see themselves as salespeople. They don't like to think of themselves as sales.
It's a very, when you say dirty word, that's very interesting you calling it that. I don't think anybody that had went into admissions roles went into that thinking for 1 minute they were going to be salespeople. And I didn't. I think if you had to do one of those little aptitude tests, you know, when you were at school, what job will you do one day? I think if anybody had to say to me you'd be in a sales role, I told them you're absolutely bonkers. It's nothing I'm going to do. I suppose when you look at the process of what we do, especially those of us who travel and come and meet with agents and the networking part of it, absolutely. It comes down to sales, I think. But if you don't have a particular love for education, if you don't really understand the product, because it isn't as simple as this is a very individualized, very, very emotional decision. My father always jokes about things you can't talk about at a dinner party. And I think what we need to remember is we work with two of the most important things to a family: their children and their money as independent schools, those two things. And you're about to get them to commit to not just a year or a couple. This is a long-term commitment.
I mean, and you do it with integrity. Like we were talking, and I know that a lot of your colleagues as well will not enroll a child if you have a doubt that it is potentially not a good fit. So you do it with integrity, but still, at the end of the day, is it not a sales role?
I think it's turned into one. I think when we talk about market trends, when we talk about a downturn, when we talk about inevitably, if you are of the same kind of school, if you're competing with another co-ed independent boarding in a certain area, then yeah, it becomes what's that thing that's going to tip you over? How are you going to sell it? So you have to send, I think, to events and things like this, schools really need to look at sending the right people. There's always a danger of just sending someone who's at schools. You've got to send the right people.
It depends on the event, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it depends on the event. Absolutely. I wouldn't, if we had a senior school fair down the road to one of our prep feeders, for example, I see no issue in sending maybe a deputy head, or absolutely not, because they are in the school day to day. That were things like this, like overseas, send someone who, and it comes back to what you said about salespeople, who can sell it. Sell someone who can sell it, someone who knows the whole picture inside out.
I've obviously done a lot of this. In the room today and yesterday, we've got a mix because some heads of school, and that's great. But but they're going on to different cities, and do like to see the head. It really does. It's different.
If you can, I can afford it as a school. If you can afford it to have them out of school at that time, and if you can afford it to send them with one of your admissions people, absolutely do, because you are going to get both sides of questions. You are going to get some agents will ask very detailed academic questions and things like that. Others will just want to know about agreements, commission, kind of times like that, and that's not something that heads can always answer because it's not their world. That's our world.
Let's talk about that. We've never talked about it before, and I don't know how widely known it is. And so, I'm here because I've got a red lanyard.
Little lanyard.
An agent. I think that there's connotations of what you've just alluded to. So we say we're advisors or consultants because we genuinely have the family's best interests at heart. I'll summarize. Because it was new to me just a few years ago when I got into this. There are many schools that are looking to recruit more and more students that will, I guess agents are sort of a mobile sales force where they're recruiting students on your behalf, bringing them to you, and the schools will actually pay a commission to that agent. I'm really, really torn on how I feel about this. I think some schools do it very well. Some agents do it well, and obviously it's actually rife for unethical practice.
Absolutely. Well, any of this is, I mean, any industry that has a compensation linked towards something will happen. This isn't something unique to schools or universities or anything. Let's say not schools, and let's say education. This is not unheard of, and no one's going to sit here and go, what is unethical practices? I'm like, yeah, look, anything sales environment, you will get that. I think there's a lady who's kind of works and is known with us. I've had a voicemail from on LinkedIn this week, who's kind of working on a group and putting something together about schools standing together against agents, educational consultants, people moving students mid GCSEs or mid A levels because of commission. Now, it's interesting when you meet someone, consultants, agents, all of them for the first time, you can very quickly in that conversation establish how their way of working is. I could have meetings with people that we sit there for 45 minutes and not once do they ask, and what is the commission? And a lot of them don't. And I like that. But there will always be some who, before they've even sat down, they will walk over, hadn't booked appointments and gone, well, before you see someone else, can I just ask, what do you guys pay? And I have a problem where my face, no fault, I've really tried to work on my language on that. My face is not caught up yet. I will make no secret of it. I will have a very short conversation with that individual. Oh, I go, yeah, we do pay commission, but feel free to come and learn about our school. And we kind of, because I'm not entertaining that, because if that's your opening question, then I don't think this is going to work for us. Yes, we're in the business of recruitment. We're still a business, but the child and the student needs to be heart of any of this, and their journey and what they need. So that's lovely if you can get some, and you want to compensate good people. You do want to compensate good people because for them it's a job as well, right? They need pay, but we have I'm with you on the word agent. We need to work on this. We need to change the narrative. Yeah, we need to change agent to education consultants.
So, I mean, I differentiate by, obviously we charge a fee to the parents because, like you say, we need to get paid and this, we're providing a service. If you're not actually providing a service and you're just doing sort of direct introductions or referrals on the hope that you might get a commission from the school, then that's what you do. That's your business model. That's not our business model. But I think there is definitely a difference between agents and consultants. They are used interchangeably, which annoys me. I think, look, I'm just going to put it out there. I feel like parents, they shop around for different agents or representatives. Let's call them reps, and some charge a little, and some charge a lot. But what parents should know is that they're getting a level of service.
Yeah, absolutely.
To what they charge.
And it's about building those relationships with those agents as well, right? Having those good relationships. It's that balance as schools. Do we have 200 agents on our books and maybe we get one or two of them every couple of years, or do we have a core group of people? And when I walked into the role, I did a hell of a lot of traveling, more than I do at the moment, and I still do a lot now in the beginning, because I wanted to go everywhere and go, let's just start this from the beginning again, meet all the people, see all we've got, and then kind of, you have to give it time, right? And it needs to become a bit of a traffic light system of going, okay, well, I met you 5 years ago, and you signed an agreement, we haven't really heard from you again, and kind of not threaten people at all, but just nudge and go, everything all right? You're still there? Do you not recruit? And that's okay to have those conversations. People shouldn't be scared of those. I know of schools, of groups, that's the other thing we need to look at. There's us that have individual schools, and that's what we've got. And then there's big education groups. And obviously with the VAT, in the UK in particular, it's acquisitions and mergers and bigger groups and things like that. The groups have the opportunities to have in-country agents and have, people by patches and so they can go.
That becomes a lot more corporatized.
This comes back to when we spoke about sales earlier, where I am apprehensive with that word. I'm probably a bit old school in that. I probably need to just get used to that and knowing the shift and accepting that that's probably what's happening.
We've got, I was interested as well, because we're in Shanghai at the moment, but the schools have quite a number of Chinese representative. Chinese agents would prefer to speak to a Chinese rep, and I just wonder, how are they really, really getting to what what is at the core of what this school is all about? If they're all just speaking in Chinese about Chinese families, more schools are doing that, which is surprising to me.
I think a lot of it has to do with, come back to what we said about having bigger groups. I can totally understand if you're a group that has 62 schools under your brand, let's put it that way. Absolutely. There's only so many places you can be. Probably much to my own detriment. I want to have the conversation. If it means we open WeChat and we translate, look, we're in the world of AI. I mean, I was at an event with our immigration partner a couple of months ago, and the fabulous Dr. Andy Kemp was there. Now, I mean, the stuff he does is incredible. And that morning, just before he came and did his presentation, there was something launched on Google, interestingly, that in real time would translate. So if you had a Google call or a Teams call with a family, it would in real time translate into their language. We need to try and use technology in that sense more. I was at a smaller event last week with a well-known Turkish agent. There was only 6 schools in the room. It was really lovely, bespoke family invites, but she provided each one of us with a free of charge translator. Now, I think if you look at the type of event, that was brilliant because you had only 50 families come in, only 6 schools small. I think something like this, something a bit more global, something everything else, to each their own. I want to represent my own school.
We did an event similar last week in Hong Kong. We had 4 schools, 25 families, and we're trying different things. We think real conversations and real connections really do matter.
Absolutely.
What do you think, what are you doing now to, I don't even want to use the word recruit, to attract, good fit families? What's working for you just now?
Contact. Exactly as you said about, and bespoke. Move away from, we've seen you. So now we do our standard template that we have in our customer relationship manager. We just send it out going, met you here. Here is the notes I took yesterday, as well of going, this one was really interested in our aviation program, and having those direct videos going, you and I met here. It shows you've listened.
You send little videos.
Yes, send little videos as well. It shows you've listened. We're in an era. Okay, we're in Shanghai, so a lot of things are blocked. I'm having massive TikTok withdrawals at the moment. I'm not going to lie. Huge TikTok withdrawals. I'm so getting a VPN.
It doesn't work either.
Doesn't work. But we're in whether we like it or not, and we've got to go with the flow. We're in a time where you've got to get people in 30 seconds. You've got to get people in videos, in visuals. No one reads.
Repeatedly.
Absolutely. It's keeping them warm. I laugh at the kids because I do it at school and they go, oh, Miss Smith's going to say that thing again where she calls us the next society. We are sadly, and it is sad, in a world now where you can call someone like Next in the UK or go online, the clothing store, and order by 10 p.m. and it gets delivered the next morning. People will not wait for a phone to ring longer than 5 rings anymore. People will not wait. They'll move on to the next one. People will open your website, and if they don't get what they need immediately, they move on somewhere else. So visuals, videos, bespoke, actually answering the specific questions that they wanted. This takes a lot of admin. It takes a lot of work, but if one of the biggest pieces of advice I'll give is build up your content. Build up your content and build up your content now. And you don't need to do hiring videographers and do everything else. This,
yes.
We're in we're in the middle of a hotel, but it will do.
Those shiny corporate videos, I call them shiny corporate videos. And I know there's a couple of very good videographer companies that kind of got this schools market all stitched up. And they make beautiful videos, but they all look the same. So a prospective parent, honestly, especially one that might be slightly, if you're concerned about how the school is spending their money because you're concerned about what they're charging you, I'm looking at a video like that and going, how much did that cost them?
I think, and we can agree to disagree on this one, there will always still be a place for one shiny corporate big video. There'll always be a place because you can kind of use snippets of that for your digital ads, for your quick Facebook ads, the things that go past, the thing that catches the eye, that drone video that lands. Oh, you've got to have a drone shot, right? So I will say there's some space for that still. But again, attend conferences, attend seminars, listen to what is in the world out there. I was at the Metropolis conference a year ago now. It's a year ago? Nearly January. And there was a comment made that your highest buyers of independent schooling for their children is mums in their late 30s, early 40s. But that is also 38% of your TikTok users. And more often than not now, they will look at an Instagram video or a TikTok video of a school before they will go look at the website or listen to someone else. So if you don't have that authentic snippets of conversation, there's a video from a school that I now share with everyone because I think it's the cutest thing in the world. Part of me now goes, can't reinvent that because now they're going to know I've watched it. But they did a really cute video of a sixth former with a reception child. And they're sitting in the reception class, just playing a game together. And someone off screen will ask the sixth form, what's the best part of your day? And he says, well, I had this law lesson. We spoke about this case. Da, da, da. And then they look at the reception, your day, and he went, I played with Bertie and it was great. And it's immediately, your mind just goes, there's a journey. This is what they can do at that school. Look at the development. This is a mini version. And whoever did it cleverly as well, and the little one looked like the older one. It was brilliantly done, but it was authentic. It was literally here. Let's do it quickly. And there's nothing wrong with rough and ready video. There's nothing wrong. And give it to the students. Most of us do media, do film studies, do those kinds of subjects. And they know what they're doing.
And the students are often, maybe the mums are making the decision, but often driven by the students. So we get a lot of inquiries from 13, 14, 15-year-olds. I have to redirect it back and say, we'd love to speak with you. We do need to involve your parents. But they're taking the initiative.
Absolutely.
Research. So they're the ones that are also watching the TikTok videos, depending on which country they're in. Was that research done with British families?
No, it was done with diverse boarding families. It was looking at the different places that people will look at it. You're absolutely right about who you sell to use the word sell again. When we do tours of school, and I've always said to my team, and I need to stop referring to them as the girls. It's just I have a group of women and they are fabulous. But I always said to them, if it's a junior school tour, know that that tour is going to take you at least an hour and a half to 2 hours, and you will answer a lot of detail. Absolutely rightly. These people are handing over their 4 or 5-year-olds. They want to know what are they going to do every minute, every day, phonics, this, that, and you're selling to the parents. When it reaches a senior school, when you walk into that reception, the first person you introduce yourself to is the child. And I do it, and I immediately walk in and I go, just remember, this is about you today. I ignore the parents for a second. I go, this is about you today. I want to answer your questions. And then I go, hi, mum and dad, how are you? Now, more than ever, they make their own decisions. They decide their own journeys. They shortlist. They go look at the TikTok and Instagram videos. Before we even reach the back of the theatre, I go, great, where are we going? We're going to the Astro, we're going into that theatre. And they immediately, oh, this is about me. And a lot of times I get, oh, I like it all. Can I see it all? I was like, great, we can do all of it. You've got to allow for them being part of their journey because it is their journey. And for a lot of these families who can afford a lot of your higher end independents, even some of your ones, this isn't just about the UK. We've got some Swiss boarding schools here and places like that. The parents not that they don't care, they don't have the time. And the students have grown up a lot quicker than they could or should, and they know what they want to do and where they want to go.
It's the parents' responsibility to do a lot of research, even if their child has spearheaded that research, and to look at a smaller number of schools. And then when they're down to their final 3 or whatever, let your son or your daughter shoot.
Yeah, they're going to live there, essentially. They're going to have their formative years there. They need to know all of it, and everyone needs to be involved in that. We are very lucky that our boarding staff will be available if we're going to the boarding house to kind of, if they're there, if they're not busy in doing other massive things, they will be there to kind of have that conversation. I will say the positivity coming out of this, and I try and have a positive view on all of this, is I firmly believe that in the next 18 months, we will do this again. I firmly believe people just need to get over the drama, and a lot of it take away from everything we spoke about today about visa costs and the economic downturns. We also have a global decline in birth rates, not just country by country, global. And so everybody is competing as such for the same bodies, the same children. But we will come out of that.
Thanks for listening. If today's episode sparked questions, or if you're ready for support with UK boarding school admissions, we're here to help. Reach out to us at www.topschoolsadmissions.com or follow the link in the show notes. Your child's exceptional UK boarding school educational journey starts with a conversation, so let's have a chat.